Hey! It's that time of the week again. What time of the week, you may ask? Well, awkwardly awesome podcast time of the week, of course. I'm I'm your host, Jason Freeman. Really glad to be with you. Thanks for tuning in. And today we're talking about a subject that is so absolutely dear to my heart: creativity. My guest today is brilliant in the way she has helped me to become more confident in my creativity and just more professional in my creativity, and she helps many people with this, and I'm so excited to bring her on. But first this.
Today's guest, Harmony Sedona.
Let me tell you about Harmony. Harmony Sedona is a possibility coach, writing mentor, healer, and content developer who has always been a deeply intuitive, unconventional maverick spirit. Um, in her work, Harmony combines a degree in human development and psychology from Syracuse University with over 20 years of extensive study in metaphysical activations and writing, editing, energy management, meditation, visioning, healing, and personal growth. Harmony has created a new modality called writer whispering. It's an organic writing and healing process in which Harmony guides creatives and entrepreneurs to develop content and write. But not only that, but to develop content and write with joy. Please help me welcome Harmony Sedona. Yay!
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 Hi.
Hi.
Oh, yeah, hello there. Hi.
Thanks for being here, my friend, and coach, and it's just so exciting to have you on because you are so brilliant, and I'm excited to share what you have to offer with the awkwardly awesome tribe.
Thank you.
So I'm curious to start off when you were a kid. Did you anticipate being a writer whisperer when you were 7 or 8? Did you have another career path in mind?
As I look back, I think that writer whisper was always in the quote unquote cards. I would have never in a million years have called it writer whispering. My passion was to become a lawyer, to become an advocacy lawyer, and help people with their struggles and fight the good fight. So yeah, that was the dream.
Well, why were you so passionate about helping people fight the good fight?
I thought I'd have an answer to that. And he's like, oh my God, not on a podcast. Don't go blank on me. But I think it was the writers that I was probably reading at the time. I was reading Cicero and Michener and Taylor Caldwell and Aristotle. And so I think there was a framework to their, and I don't know that we would have called it consciousness at that point, but how they held consciousness for a better society, a better world, while wrapping in people's journeys and how people would stand up and help people on their journeys and what that looked like. And for some reason, that really impassioned me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. So now, fast forward a bit. You're living on the East Coast, and you decide to move out to sunny San Diego. How did that decision come to you?
You know, again, I think there's been so many times in my life where there's been an awareness or a download from spirit or universe or whatever we want to call it, that there's something that would be a good idea or the next step, or, hey, how about this? You know, my guidance sometimes comes through with massive enthusiasm. Yeah, let's. And for some reason, I had been drawn to the West Coast for many years, just didn't have the whatever to travel out there. I grew up around Indiana and migrated east because that was the calling. So it was school in Syracuse and marriage in Buffalo, and then living in the Philadelphia area for many, many years. And there was just something about the West Coast, like you said, you know, sunny California, you know, there were all these metaphors of sun and life and California dreaming, and it just felt even energetically like there would be this expansion. And I remember sitting in a healing center in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and there was this license plate that, you know, appeared in front of me, and it says, "Go West." I'm like, well, hey, that's a sign I've got to go west. And that's how those of us who try to listen to spirit work. You know, oh, it's a license plate, it's a bird, it's an animal. And so there was an opportunity that came in out of the blue. A friend that I didn't know yet was looking to do a residency somewhere else. And she needed somebody to house sit her home in Northern California, about 60 miles west of Tahoe. And I went out to meet her, and we had this phenomenal relationship, and it was amazing. And I was like, my heart was like, wow. And then I was like, okay, so I have 23 days to clear out an apartment of all my stuff and say goodbye to all my friends and 2 cats, put them in the car, and we'll drive for 5 days, and we'll get to California. It'll be so exciting. I can't wait.
When you say you get downloads from spirit, is that something only a special select group of people get?
Well, absolutely, but you know, being a little humorous, it's, to me, it's a matter of connection, and almost like comparing it to having Wi-Fi or having, you know, like a mobile service where you've got, or like, you know, how many times have you gone to make a call and you had no bars? So to me, some of us just have more bars or have been trained how to listen. I think there's another piece here, that there's an awareness and a willingness to give it credibility, to not dismiss it as my imagination, or are you kidding me, or no thank you, and to really engage in a relationship with the download and give it credibility, but also be in discernment with it. Ask some questions so that there's some balance. So I think anybody and everybody can, and I think as we head more into the years unfolding, more and more and more people will not only be downloading, but they'll realize that they've been downloading all along. They just didn't call it downloading. I mean, really quickly, as a quick example, an engineer working with blueprints and plans, they're getting downloads and ideas on how to structure something so that it works. They use their education and their ideas, and ideas are downloads, their intuition. Just some of us call it downloads.
if someone's listening and interested in the subject and wants to tap more into that intuition and downloads, where would they start strengthening, or how would they start strengthening that muscle?
Great question. By no means the full list, but some ideas are, some of us are writers. Some of us become writers because we sit down and create space to actually journal or write. Again, journal is a loose term. Journal can be in your phone. It can be on your keyboard. It can be in an actual journal. It can be hieroglyphics on a wall. Yeah, I know. I'm being, but taking it out of the mystique and putting it into the physical. I think
Taking it out of the mystique and putting it into the physical.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's probably how it's done, is demystifying it and allowing it to be ordinary. And to me, there's a component of how much can I honestly believe that what I'm being guided is real? How much of it is, can I trust in it? And asking some questions as it comes through, like you get a download to an awareness to quit your job. Well, maybe the first thing is not to go to your boss and say, hi, I quit. Maybe the first thing is to ask a few more questions in journaling, or if you go out in nature, if you hike. I find that for me, the greatest way to access is to ask questions. I'm always asking questions of the download. And so some of the questions could be like, well, do you mean I need more education? Are you talking now or in 6 months? Who do I need to meet? And asking better questions gives better answers and better clarity.
Asking better questions gives better answers and better clarity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I would mention is I started this whole thing. I was already tapped in, just didn't know it, and I ended up by serendipity in my mentor's, classroom basement. And his course was called Mentoring with the Masters. And his idea was that if they brought in the etheric energies of masters and other spiritual beings that you can't necessarily see, you could feel the energy. You'd learn what it was like to have an expanded awareness, to learn how to trust it. And I think what's really relevant now is to learn how to trust ourselves. It used to be the external message in, and now it's more about how we can learn to trust the download, the awareness, the information, the suggestion, and the wisdom. And that, to me, is like anything that you practice and you learn how to do. Many are doing this. I think it has to feel congruent. Like when I work with people in writer whispering, one of the things we do is establish a container that allows for an expanded consciousness and awareness to be present, so that we are open to suggestions, ideas, words, things that aren't being written, talked about, said. And so that's forming a container. So when you get somebody you really resonate with, yeah.
Okay. Like forming a container. What do you mean by that? Like you put your clients in Tupperware containers?
Yeah, it's like a zoo. No. I love it. We use, language operational definitions. Container is like intangible words. It would be like a framework. It sets up an intent of what we want to accomplish, of what somebody wants to get as a result, how somebody might want to heal or grow or transform or shift. It sets up just like, you set up a home. A comparable would be one sets up a home, and if they use feng shui, they've set up an energetic container to help them be more prosperous, more healthy, more their love life. It's working in energy management. So a container is a conversational form of energy management where you have something that allows people to feel comforted and held and safe and nourished, and it's welcoming, a place to do different things that they use etheric or healing containers for.
Powerful. Powerful. So you saw the license plate that said go west, and you had 23 days, got packed up, got the happy kitties in the car, and you got to California, and it's been magical since the moment you crossed the California state line. Is that how it went?
Oh, totally magical. I mean, again, that's what's so ironic for many of us who are doing this spiritual journey of coming to know ourselves and gaining confidence and self-esteem and really trusting ourselves and clearing our soul's path. Yeah, it got really intense. It got really intense from the very moment that I basically landed. I had 24 hours of beauty with this beautiful person, and then she was facing her issues as she was trying to get ready to, so all her stuff was on top, and it brought up all my stuff, and she eventually, moved to where she was moving, and then the well went dry because we're in Northern California and water.
So you mean that figuratively the well went dry?
Yeah, and realistically.
You mean it literally?
Literally,
The well actually did go dry.
it actually did go dry. So it became challenging for her to keep the well process going because she didn't know if there would be more water, and she was planning on coming back at some time, and it was too hard to deal with long distance. So there was like, okay, we'll work together on space, but you're going to have to find another place to live.
What a shock.
Yeah, it was quite a shock on all levels. I was tired. I wanted to just, make pillows and do feng shui and make my container in my home and start living my California dreaming rainbow life. I was like, hey.
So this is a common story when people step out of that, out of what they know. They have a dream. They get signs of one sort or another. They have an intuition, and they're all excited, like yay! And then they get there, and the well metaphorically goes dry. What is that? What does that mean when that happens?
That's a great question, and I think, having done a lot of decades of reflecting what all these journeys and things mean, I really believe that it has to do with, we could say this a couple of different ways, how aligned we are with knowing who we are, accepting who we are, or we could put it in self-esteem terms. How much self-esteem do we have? How much do we believe in ourselves? How much do we believe that things are possible? And what will it take, by perhaps contracts or other ways that the soul is working, for us to know who we are? That there'll be experiences that come up that are meant to help us grow and heal and question and get help and be with as part of the journey. I mean, you and I have talked about recently how I talk about how I have had, how recently I got a blood test, and the blood test revealed that there was a thyroid issue. thyroid's not working, hypothyroid. And anybody who goes to Google and looks up hypothyroid, it's exhaustion, it's fatigue, it's depression, it's non-enthusiasm, and gaining weight, and a bunch of other wonderful things. So my acupuncturist suggests a supplement. I take the supplement, and some would call it the silver bullet or the magic pill, except that as I was being with it, the reason that it also started working and I'm feeling better and more alive and more available and enthused is because the 10,000 plus hours that were needed to do the growth, the shifting, the transformation, the healing, the journey, the whatever the word is out on the street, I showed up for it. And I was, I can't say that I love the experience. I have a different viewpoint than you do, Jason, on, some of this, a little more cynical at times, but I'm working on dissolving the cynical. And, so for me, why does life turn around? To me, there's a certain degree that when we can truly believe in ourselves as being that magnificent and really start to play with that energetically and knowing at our core, I believe that a lot then can change because it gives the universe more to work with in having us receive and say, yeah, I believe in the good, I believe in the possible, and it changes a lot of the dynamics that then help to change the pieces in life step by step.
You are doing this with your hands. Could you talk about that metaphor a little bit?
Yeah, it came up. To me, it's like a virtual Rubik's Cube. And in my awareness, it's like you take a Rubik's Cube and you go, and you keep moving all the different parts until the colors are all solid on all sides of the cube. And that's, to me, what spiritual growth feels like. Heal, transform, awareness, journal, write this, that, heal, talk to somebody, do an experience, raise it, until it finally starts to be where you're more open-hearted. You're more open to believe in the good, to know that you deserve it. Those are incremental things that we as humans, part of the journey is that embracing.
Amazing. So there's a lot of people who know they have a story within them. So if they just go to a class on English grammar and hone up on the spelling and sit down and write, will the story just come out like voila?
Everybody's different and there are multiple flavors of ice cream. And I'm not going to say that wouldn't be some people's entry point, because some people might adore the rules and they might adore the grammar and they might enjoy the wordplay. In my world, that writing is more, how do I want to say this? I think there are more congruent, gentler, easier, softer, more intuitive ways to be writing what your soul and your heart are asking you to write.
So how does a radio whisper help a writer? I'll get into how you've helped me in a little bit, but first let's talk about it more generally. Like,
Cool.
if someone comes to you and tells you you're a good story and conversation, and they say to you, "Hey, how many I want to write that down. How could you help them as a writer whisperer?
Well, thank you for a beautiful question. The people that I work with, they're coming to understand that their words are important, that they matter, that their stories matter, that the journey that they, for many, if we're talking about books or memoirs, help books or books on spirituality or, to help other people or the journey, what they have to say matters. And because they've lived the journey, it's like they can reach back their hand and say, hey, I've got a way out. I can help you. Here's an idea of maybe how you can get by this or past this, or you can understand it, or you can see you're not alone. And when somebody comes to me for that kind of writing, it's actually more about the content development. It's more about helping them to see what is their content, what is their story, what might be the outline, what might be the framework. There's also the ability for us to just have casual conversations. And from conversations comes the most brilliant raw content, because somebody is just like sitting there talking to a friend, me, and there's questions like, maybe like doing a podcast here. This could have been like a book content, and since they don't have to sit down and write, and they don't have to do pen to paper, and they don't have to do keyboard, and they might not consider themselves writers, because writer is a narrow definition of you have to use your hand or your fingers. They're allowed to speak their words. They're allowed to have inflections and tonality, and they're allowed to have enthusiasm or have feelings or have emotions about what's going on. They're able to tell their story. There's questions so that they can expand or put pieces together as to why it might be relevant. And it's a whole different way of being with the quote unquote writing process. Many of the people that come to me are meant to be leaders. They're meant to be thought leaders. They're meant to bring their content into the world. And so there's this, like, who am I to be so brilliant? I don't have anything to say. It's always been said. I don't know. And there's a process that we work with in helping them build confidence incrementally. Yeah, of course you have something to say. Of course there's brilliance, and there's encouragement, but there's also where they can see they're in a belief system that isn't working, and how can that be with healing, dissolving, shifting the energy so that they can start to have a different impression of who they see or feel or embrace when they look in the mirror. So, and the other fun part about the writer whispering is it's also for people who want to develop content for a speech or a course or for their marketing content. I just helped somebody recently develop a whole new healing modality, because she wasn't putting her pieces together of her complete brilliance. She saw herself narrow, and it was like, well, if you put this and this and this and this, and you put it all together, and there's your name, and her mouth dropped. And it took her 6 months to embrace, but then it was like, oh my God, I am that. So there's a lot of different ways that this process can be helping people in their journey.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One of your gifts that I've experienced is someone like me, or it sounds like this other person you were working with. We have so many various parts of things we're creating, but it's like we have the puzzle pieces, but we'll not show you how they go together. You are brilliant at seeing the big picture. Maybe the cover of the jigsaw puzzle. the picture on the box and then helping your clients assemble those pieces in a very powerful way.
I love that, and thank you. And I think I'm going to steal that because that's kind of like what it's like. You know, you could be doing a jigsaw puzzle, and your piece that you need is way up in the corner, or those of us who have cats magically got in their mouth, and all of a sudden you find it by their food dish.
A cat would never take a jigsaw puzzle
Oh,
piece.
cat would never do that. They never push it off the table either. So, you know, I'm just like, making stuff up here as I go. But yeah, it's the ability to be patient as the pieces start to come together. And again, there's a incremental willingness to be. It's one thing to invite the writing, the expression. It's another to believe that what is said matters, and that what is said can actually, the power of one's words and expression can transform and heal and shift and change. And to me, that's part of the inside job that's so important, that goes back to who I saw myself as a kid and being an advocate for somebody's journey and their brilliance, and giving them the way that they can start to express this and learn how to be with this differently. It's and a lot of people who are working with books or memoirs, most of them don't start to write to be published. They're simply looking to express their journey, to leave a legacy, to help to understand the dynamics of what has happened. And their intent is not to be published. That kind of comes further down the line. Sometimes once a manuscript is done, and then they can breathe and somebody can kind of go, you know, what you have here is really powerful. With editing, you might want to consider taking next steps. And they're like, oh. And this seems to be true across the board. So part of the process is helping people to really, again, embrace that brilliance, knowing themselves as brilliant.
Two things come to mind. The first, as you talked about having conversations with your clients and recording them, it came to my mind that this is how human stories have been told throughout most of human history.
There you go.
By the campfire, whatever. It's not till recently that we have relatively recently that we have pencil and paper, and very recently that we have personal computers.
Yeah, tell me
This is a relatively fun way to tell a story by typing into a computer.
It's very isolative. It's very much you and you with your brilliance and your scoff demons all at once, and you know, looking at blank pages going, oh my God, or having a prolific amount of writing and still looking at it and going, oh my God, that's the biggest pile of, and everything in between. Maybe it's not.
And someone who has writer's block might be like, oh, I would love having a huge amount of writing, but I can personally testify to this, having just a huge pile of writing. It can be really overwhelming, really
overwhelming. And you know, what like makes me excited is the thought of people's writing and then how to put it together in a form that it could actually, I don't know, I always think of publishing. I know I'm so bad, but I'm always thinking of like, how can somebody's work get into the world? It's like putting the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. I don't know what the reference is, but it just excites me. Like, oh, you could take this writing and oh, you could bring it into the world. I mean, there's no in between, like, hi, there's all these different steps that you might need to go through, meet, whatever, but it's just still holding the vision. But yeah, I understand what you're saying about the huge amount of writing. Yes.
There's another thing you're really good at, holding the big vision, the cover of the jigsaw puzzle box, but yeah, being with your clients step by step.
Yep.
And sometimes scoff demons do come in. What are scoff demons?
Scoff demons are what people would call your belief systems, your patterns, your stories, your wounds, the places where you're in resistance or negating, or I guess the common term is monkey mind. Or the ones that go, you can't do that. Yeah, what do you think? Who are you? Are you serious?
Well, the human mind does tend to do that.
Oh, and then the heart gets involved too, and the heart goes, I'm being dramatic. I know. The heart gets involved and it goes, I hurt. I have memories. The body has memory, cellular memory. I hurt. I don't know if I don't know if I have the strength to do this again. We've tried this before and I just don't know if I can stay in the game with you. And the heart is like, all the emotions and the feelings and gets all tangled. So I think there's heart scoff demons as well as mental ones. And then when they both, come together and collaborate, then it's like, hey, that's when we watch Netflix and eat lots of chocolate.
So what happens when your clients experience scoff demons and tell you about that? Do you just say, hey, forget about that, nose to the grindstone, write me 3 more pages? Or how do you deal with that?
I think there's several ways that my clients and I work together. I think one of them is I might suggest a remote, how do I say this, healing session. I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with different modalities of healing. It's pretty mainstream now. And in my world, healing helps to remove energetic blocks, which are in our bodies. I think one of the easier ways is people are a lot more familiar with somatic healing, and that there's actually the body holds the energies and the stories of the past. So there's more language reference than there used to be. But I'm a big advocate for doing healing sessions because they help clear, and they help to feel less overwhelmed, and there's more of a lightness that can happen, and it helps to give more clarity and a different perspective. So it just kind of works in the background to lift it out so that you kind of go, okay, I'm not feeling as overwhelmed. During sessions, we can actually sit and have a talk about it. So what's going on with you? What are you feeling? What are you being reminded of? What are you saying to yourself? And there might be, hey, can we move past that, or do we really need to talk about it? And I also, I don't believe that anybody who is in this kind of process, because it is a process, it's not for the people who want to write a book or a speech within a day. This is more about the journey and the process and the unfolding and the emerging and the coming to grips and the owning and being one with what our soul is asking us to bring forth, and us saying yes, and the process in between of taking the steps. So there's process and there's marinating and there's time in between to be with things that might hurt or feel uncomfortable. I mean, I'm going to go here softly. We were working on a project for you, and in the middle of our conversations and you becoming aware of some different perspectives, you had a memory. And so we started to talk about the memory, and you were given space to be with the memory.
Mm-hmm.
And because you wrote about the memory. And then the next time we did a session, there was such a vividness. And then I did a healing session. So there were multiple pieces. And the next time we did a session, it was like, I feel less intense about the memory. It doesn't hurt as badly. And I'm more clear. And then we were in a place where we could go, and how did that memory significantly impact where you are now and what your message is? So we were able to draw a bridge between something that had been painful that got lessened, and then you could show up and be with it and merge into a different level of thought leadership, because you saw where that pattern became a metaphor for what others you're trying to help actually go through. You had the empathy, you had the understanding, and you could in fact put out your hand and say, I can lead you through this because and so that's part healing. That's part embracing your vision as a leader. That's part content development and sequencing. It's part you bringing your brilliance into the world. And it's also then in a place where it can start to help others. So there's a large ripple effect to writer whispering, ripples out.
Wow. That's so well said. That's so well said. One of the things I've loved that you do during your coaching sessions is you often ask me, okay, multiple choice. What is multiple choice, and why do you use it?
I mean, I'm going to give a little bit of background first. Because I learned how to have access to the guidance, and I was taught at a time 20 years ago where you were known to be a messenger and people would come to you because you would give them messages. I started bringing that into my work, and for a while it worked, and then it didn't, because people now don't want to be told necessarily what to do or they want to have some autonomy and sovereignty to really be with what they need to discover and know. So multiple choice for me is a way of giving my clients the opportunity to talk about what is relevant for them during that session, because the sessions aren't necessarily linear. They are very much about what's going on in the moment that can give clues to the past that can then be bridged and put into content development and frameworks that allows the person to see their brilliance and their content in a different way. So everything that's brought in not only has relevance to the development of the content and the embracing of the calling, but also to the healing of the individual, to have more confidence, to have more self-esteem, to feel their worth. And if a person can not feel boxed in and say, well, this thing happened to me this week and it was amazing, or I'm in tears and I'd like to talk about it. They get to be heard. They get to express. Their content is recorded. So if there's something there that becomes important to their marketing or their business or their book or their speech, they have the segment of content. They can pull out and repurpose. They can simply be with it to have a form of a friend, a healer, a champion, hold space for them, be there, hold container, love them, nourish them, embrace them, say, I'm here, I'm listening, I care. That's how somebody can be in a different state of being, learn how to be in a different state of being. And that affects the content, it affects the person's state of being, their self-esteem, their consciousness. It all wraps together.
So often, modern life is so segmented. Like we go to one place for healing, we go to another place for a writing coach. We go here to have fun. Just so many different segments, and part of your brilliance is you kind of bring everything together, and the benefit for a client is they can start seeing bridges between these parts of their lives, which before seemed so separate and isolated, and that those connections start having a profound impact on one's ability to create with ease.
There you go. That goes back to the original thing that you said at the beginning about creativity. And yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I do. That's the one thing that keeps slipping out, like I have. It does help not only with confidence and clarity, but with the creativity. And, I'd be the first to say that I'm not, the whole answer. I'd be the first to say that I have enough experience in my own journey to know that one person cannot be the whole package. I can offer a lot of pieces to integrate, but depending on what somebody is coming up with or what is coming up for them, it might be incredibly valuable for them to go work with a therapist, to do somatic healing, to include maybe breath work, to work in a journaling workshop, to take a writing workshop, to even go to something like a Toastmasters where they can learn how to speak, not speaking, but to learn how to start to express, because many of us are like, we've been taught that, we've been shown that, don't speak, be quiet, all the different words that we have now for don't be you, don't speak, shut up, that fill in the blank. And people are needing to know that it's safe, and they create their own safety to be brilliant, to have original thoughts, to know that these original thoughts matter. A quick example for me is, hyperbole. There's a million books written on healing and self-esteem and transformation. There's a million different flavors, and I have done my own showing up for a multitude of them and a multitude of mentors. And so here I am in 2015, magic year, and I come across a book by Shonda Rhimes, the wonderful showrunner, now known for Bridgerton, but Grey's Anatomy and some other things. And she writes this book called The Year of Yes. Now, how can anything be fresh and new in this world? Well, she's a magnificent writer, and what she did is she took 14 chapters of her life and decided to say yes to everything for a year. But then she went and she talked about where her resistances were and what she learned, and I have to admit, it became almost like my Bible. It was new writing it. I got to hear it in a different way. I'm not repeating the same old platitudes. I'm like, oh my God. And I still use some of her references to this day when I get stuck. That's why having content development that is authentic from your soul, and then expressing new ideas about how people can be in the world, is so valuable. It's so valuable.
And I believe that everyone has some spark of brilliance uniqueness within them that could help other people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. And it's interesting for me that while I'd like to, I'm very unconventional. And being in the decade that I am, I'm finally made peace with the fact that I am unconventional. And I'm finally in a place where I can celebrate that I'm unconventional and put it out in the world and have less attachment and more boutique kind of relationships with friends and clients. But I tend to be excited by what will change the world or what will change the process or how something new can be done. And when I was working for a corporation in 2007, I was invited onto a project, and it was a project of engineers that had to do a proposal for manufacturing software, which I know nothing about. It ended up being one of the most dynamic, fluid, amazing relationships of writing with their lead engineer and the head of the division as to how to craft a proposal that went beyond the dry, really heard what the new client was looking for, and how did we build a framework and a whole new piece where we were able to show the man who was the potential client what was possible, why it mattered to him. Here's the summary. Here's marketing language. Here's the engineering language. How do we bridge it? And then how does the business developer go and sell it? Now, I know nothing about that, and yet it didn't matter that the content was about software, because their expertise, they could do the expertise. I provided the bridge and helped them to bring out content that they didn't even know they could have. And then it was like, hey, if you write this and you do this and you do, and then go write it and bring it back, and then we'll work on how it all goes together. While I love doing the idea of memoirs and books and courses, I mean, that's why, I do want to do nonfiction. I do want to work with people in growth and consciousness, but there's different ways that this can be approached by a multitude of people doing a multitude of different things.
That is so exciting. It's so exciting that none of us have to put ourselves in a box and say I'm not creative or I'm not emotional or whatever. We can all be a variety of things.
I think that's a beautiful point. I think that creativity has a mystique to it. I think that creativity will be demystified in the years coming up. I think how creativity is defined will start to change and will start to be more inclusive across the board. Not knowing a lot about anything, a little bit about something, the little bit that I know, so I don't want to offend anybody, but just an impression is that as many of us start to visually see or hear something in a different way, and we hear it enough times or we see it enough times, it starts to normalize for us. Sometimes our inability to witness what is possible for another is because we don't have enough framework to understand but if we can start to see it in a different way, and there's a lot of invitation in our world right now, along with a lot of other pieces that are also challenging, but there's a lot of possibilities that are presented as to who people are and how they can be accepted and how they can be seen, and a lot of the labels are starting to dissolve. I mean, I think that's one of the brilliances of your work is you are dissolving some of the labels with how people can have courage and perseverance and quality of life and start to see who they are and why they are and that they matter. Comes back to that. People matter. You matter. You
Mm.
might have a challenge. Your world might be that your rainbows in California dreaming were a Supreme Court decision, or a state decision, or a place where somebody doesn't understand and puts you in a box because they don't understand. But your work helps people to really go in and start to be with themselves differently. I think when we can start to be with ourselves differently inside, it builds confidence. And if we have confidence, then we're more inclined, even with all the challenges, to show up with greater ease.
Wow. Yeah, three more things real quick. We're about on time, but I would be so remiss if I didn't ask you about your two cats.
Okay, what question?
Just briefly, could you say what you love about your cats and how they help you with your process?
I do. I love cats. I love everything about, well, I love most things about cats. Anybody who has cats understands. I'm very fortunate in that I have cats who, I call them conscious. They basically make choices not to throw things off the shelf and not to get into a whole lot of mischief. And what am I trying to say here? They fill our home with joy and energy. I mean, we could go woo for a minute. The one cat, okay, here's my world. The one cat is an alchemist. And one day I saw him and he had lifted his paw like a quarter inch above the floor and he was going like this. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm doing alchemy, Mama." And you know, what's imagination? What's Harry Potter? You know, owls doing email. I mean, come on. If an owl can do email, a cat can do alchemy. You know, and my other kitty, Allie, is teaching me about how to stop and smell the roses and how to be with the purring and how to feel more delight and smile more. And so, you know, what do we want to believe? I want to believe that my cats are amazing. They give me a lot of joy. And they also get me a lot of hiss when I make posts because they're always commenting on the cats. And I put a Jack Canfield quote up there, which was like nothing, crickets. You know, I post a picture of a cat with an ornament and I get like 45, like, oh, wow.
Awesome. So this is your return appearance, and before I ask you, what doing your imperfect best means to you, but I'll ask you quickly again. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Harmony Sedona, today?
I take time to listen, be with an answer, because, you know, we could dialogue on that for many hours. So today is a great example of what my imperfect best is. It's the ability to show up as much as I can in the moment, how much bandwidth I have to show up in the moment, to be available to what is unfolding, and then put in an organic stopping point where it is brilliant, it is what it needs to be, and it's time to stop and appreciate it and honor it and send it out. It's time to move out of the monkey mind or the scoff demons and breathe. It's permission to take a nap because I'm really tired and I need to honor myself. It's being aware of what needs to be done and being responsible, but not holding myself to such a high standard that I drive myself crazy. And I think the one thing I want to mention here is, yeah, I do work with angels. And one of the angels that came in a long time ago was an angel Faith from integrated energy therapy. And her work is about the shoulders and how you dissolve, let go of the shoulds, what I should do, what I would do, what I could do. And I find that there's a lot of pieces in my life in my imperfect best where I am going, I know I should go to this event, but my body is not ready for that journey. I know I should do this thing, but I need to listen to a different wisdom within. And being then in a place of allowance and acceptance and love for what I can and I cannot do in quote unquote a more realistic way. Doesn't mean I drop the things. It means that I just move them aside or stop or be, or, give them space to be brilliant for what they are instead of, which is hard for me because I have vision,
Mm.
And I was a little
Oh,
bit,
I'm so.
what would Jason do? I do ask that question. What would Jason do?
What Jason do? I'm so glad I asked. That was such a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
And I'll put your website up as a banner, but I just want to quickly show people how beautiful it is. Can you see that, how many?
I can.
It's just it's so, I mean, it's not only conveying information, and what you do is so utterly gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so it's and I had to write this, but I'll write it now. It's
There's an elephant on my floor. Oh my God.
right?
He was supposed to go away and he's an elephant on my floor. That's funny. I can see the elephant on my floor. I'm having a moment.
Oh, I
Sorry.
I didn't see it until right now. That's funny. So how many Sedona.com. And I encourage any of you listening to go to Harmony's website and just see what it is possible. Like I know you're going to draw inspiration from the website, whatever you do. So just go there and just be in the energy for a little bit. And if you want to talk to Harmony further, contact her. If you get what you need from looking at her website, that's awesome too. But I encourage you to go because it's so beautiful and has such good energy. Thank you, Harmony. Thank you for being on, my friend and coach. It's been a pleasure to interview you.
Likewise, Jason, my dear friend, same, my coach, my writing companion, my friend. I am honored to be here. Love you dearly. Yes.
I love you too, my friend. Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, say bye. Oh gosh, it's so fun. It's so fun to have great conversations with incredible people. So Harmony and we talk each week, but I heard some things today. I asked her some things and got some answers that I did not know and did not know about her. Some perspectives she has that I didn't know that were inspiring. I encourage you, I say this all the time, but I encourage you not to assume you know the people around you. Sure, maybe you grew up with them because of family, maybe you've been married to them for 50 years, but there's still things you don't know about them. Ask them new questions and listen to the answers. Have new conversations, and of course, do this with yourself too, because you've been with you 24/7 since the day you were born. But I guarantee you, there's things about yourself that you have yet to discover. Actually, probably a huge number of things. So be curious about yourself too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your time is valuable. Thanks for spending some of it with Harmony and I. Have a great day. And next week, Sandy Kimmel comes on. She lost her husband in December 2020. Imagine that. Just a hard time in human history, and on top of it, she lost her husband. But still, she's just brilliant musician, artist, writer, and extending kindness all over. And I want to ask her about a lot of things, but specifically how she stays so alive and so upbeat, even as she's navigating through these tough things. So please be sure to tune in next week. Until next time. Hi.